The people have spoken. Warning, viewer discretion is advised. I asked you, what did you want to see next? I put 3 choices out there last week. I put Scream 6, why I think Regular Show is the greatest cartoon of all time, and the last one, horror movies that scarred me for life, and you guys voted. I had over 181 votes. That is a record for me, and that's what we're going to talk about. Now, before I get started with the list, I want to be clear. These aren't necessarily movies from beginning to end. They're moments within a film that really just messed me up. Either they had me cry, they had me sad for weeks, they gave me nightmares for weeks. Either way, they traumatized the hell out of me. So before we get started on the list, please don't forget to subscribe, like the video, put some comments down below. I definitely want to hear from you. So here are my top 8 moments in movies that have scarred me for life. Coming in at number 8, we have Friday the 13th Part 5, The New Beginning. It's the scene where Joey, the chocolate-loving man, who just wants to have friends and be friendly, gets chopped up by an axe. It's funny because I see this scene in 2 different ways because as a kid, it made me cry. It messed me up. I was depressed for weeks because this guy who's pretty pathetic, he's got candy just coming out of all of his pockets. He just wants to be friends. He wants friends. He wants people to hang out with him. He wants to be helpful. That's all he wants. And everybody was treating him mean. Why am I laughing? And he offers Vic a candy bar, and he ends up getting chopped up. And it's funny because as an adult, it's probably one of the greatest horror scenes of all time, and I love it, and I can't stop laughing. But as a kid, I guess the tears were innocence escaping my body. But that scene messed me up. I was sad for a very long time where I had to talk to my parents about it. But yeah, chocolate-loving Joey, who probably nowadays would be registered as somebody on the spectrum, got killed by Vic. If that's how you feel, then forget it. Coming in at number 7, we have Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, Freddys Revenge, the scene where Freddy comes out of Jesse's body. Now, as of today, it's probably one of the best effects of all the kills in the Nightmare catalog, and it holds up to this day, but it was just terrifying to see that as a kid, seeing this monster escape this screaming boy's body. And of course, Mark Patton's performance sells it. It looks like he's in pain. And all the key moments where Freddy's knives are coming out of his hand, he's screaming, and the camera zooms in down to his mouth, and you can see Freddy's eye looking around. And of course, he cuts it open, and Freddy just comes out, and the upper torso just kind of falls over. It looks silly nowadays, but it still looks great, if that makes sense. I've always had this thing with body horror. It's really tough for me to watch those type of films. That's why anything with David Cronenberg, it's a hard sit through for me. And if I really just stand back and think about it, I was 8 years old when I first saw this. And here I am at 45 still talking about it. Actually, I'm 46 now. To remember the impact and trauma that you felt because of a scene almost 40-something years later says a lot. That's my number 7. Coming in at number 6, I have Taurus Trap. I'm sure none of you have heard about it, but let me explain what it's about. A group of young friends stranded at a secluded roadside museum are stalked by a masked assailant who is using telekinetic powers to control the attraction's mannequins. Just so you know, between you and I am terrified of mannequins. Not clowns, mannequins. For whatever reason, I think it was the movie Waxwork that messed me up when I saw it as a kid. But yes, Taurus Trap, it's just simplistic, but it's enough for me. And again, I saw this as a kid, and just seeing all the motions and the sounds and just the awkward movements of these mannequins attack other people. Ugh. And of course, seeing it as an adult now really doesn't impact me as much. It's still creepy in a sense. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. It's not for everybody, but it's one of the only horror films I know of that's really great, and it's also rated PG. I did recommend it to Cody, and he didn't like it. I'm like, well, you suck. And even for a while as a kid, I was scared to death to even go to museums. And here in South Texas, there's all these Alamo exhibits, and I was just scared to death looking at Davy Crockett thinking he was going to go like and attack me. I was scared to death even on field trips. I'm just like, I want to get out of here. So Taurus Trap messed me up. Coming in at number 5, I have Dave the Dead, the last of the George Romero trilogy of the zombie coming back to life. This one, I watch it now, and it's still grotesque, and it's the scenes where everybody, all the army soldiers get their comeuppance because they've been dicks the entire time. Each of those death sequences at the end is so well put together. I can't believe the film is almost 40 years old, but just the practical effects, the screaming, the ripping of the vocal cords, which I can't show on YouTube here, but that whole last sequence was really gut-wrenching for me. Because at the same time, I had that sense of bloodlust. I'm like, yes, they finally getting what they had coming to them, but at the same time, it was really tough to watch them just be ripped apart, but in a realistic, great way. Man, practical effects are so great. We need more of that. They hold up. But this film is also just, I feel like every time I watch this film, I feel like I have to take a shower. It's just so grimy and it's so dirty. And it's just so bleak. It's the end of the human race, and we're just at each other's necks. We hate each other. We're still horrible people, despite everything we've lost. So it's one of those films that it's really tough for me to sit through because it's just so grim. I hope you choke. Okay, coming in at number 4 are 2 80s animated films that me and a friend saw because his mom got them for us, and she thought they were kids' movies. And we're like, okay, let's check this out. It's about rabbits and dogs. We saw Watership Down and The Plague Dogs, which, God. If you've never heard of these films, let me tell you quickly what they're about. Let's start with Watership Down first. Watership Down is about a group of rabbits hoping to escape destruction by human developers and save their community and colony, led by 2 rabbits, Hazel and Fiver, seeking out a safe place to start a new home. I've read up a lot about this particular film since I saw it as a kid, and I understand that the rabbits are supposed to be a symbolic representation of Europe and the colonization, or the human developers are supposed to be Nazi Germany invading their home space, or any historical metaphor in history where people's homes are taken away from them by an invading nation. It is known for its death and bloodshed, and it's marketed towards children, but it is not a kid's film. It's so odd. If you're into that kind of stuff, you can check that out. I don't recommend it, but it's one of those things I feel that you have to see at least once to experience it. I know they did a remake. I'm not sure when, but yeah, that's Watership Down. Now, The Plague Dogs is worse. If you love animals, if you have a soft spot in your heart for dogs or just pets, don't see this film. Don't YouTube it. Don't look it up. The ending is the most heartbreaking, sad ending I've ever seen in my life. I cried. Me and my friend were crying at 8 years old watching this. God damn, my childhood was traumatized. Why was I watching this at 8 years old? My God. I'll tell you what it's about real quick. The film's about 2 dogs that escape a laboratory, but they're hunted because they may be infected with the bubonic plague. But they're just pets who want to find their owners. They don't know that. It's heartbreaking. The film does speak to a lot of items when it comes to animal rights, so it's very effective. I think anybody who sees this film or watches it is going to be an animal lover by the end of it. It's very sad. And again, please, for the love of all that's holy, don't watch it. Don't look up the ending. I'm telling you, if you do, it's going to mess you up for a few weeks. Don't watch it. I saw this as a kid, and it was hard. And that's my number 4. God. Coming in at number 3 is An American Werewolf in London. Now, the movie itself is pretty funny, if you ask me, but as a kid, the one part that got me was the Nazi nightmare scene. David, at this point of the movie, has already gotten bit by a werewolf, and he's recovering in the hospital, and he's having these horrible nightmares. And it's such an odd placement of the nightmare and the scene. He's dreaming about being at home with his family, his younger siblings. They're at a regular evening at home. They're just watching television, and somebody's cooking dinner, and they're watching The Muppet Show, a typical night at any family's house. The doorbell rings, they answer the door, and they are these werewolf Nazis. I remember just the image of them standing outside the door freaked me out. And it doesn't end there. They actually get assault weapons, and they shoot up the family, and they cut his siblings' necks with knives. That entire sequence is horribly violent, but I just remember it just taking me completely off guard as a kid, and then kicking the TV in with The Muppet Show on. That did it for me, but that messed me up. And I had to sleep with my parents for a few weeks after that because it just scared me. Just the idea of your family just being slaughtered within seconds just messed me up. It would mess anybody up, especially. Why did I see so many horrible films as a kid? Jesus, man. Wow. I would never let my kids see these movies at this young age, at 8. All these movies that I'm talking about, majority of them, I saw under 10 years old. Well, there you have it, number 3. Coming in at number 2 is Martyrs, the French film from 2008. I just saw this I saw it last year. And it's one of those films where I appreciate what it was trying to tell me, but I will never see it again. Nope. I will never see it again. It's just, what's the point? It's brutally just violent. And I'm not going to spoil the ending for anybody, but the film, more or less, let me just tell you what it's about. A young woman's quest for revenge against the people who kidnapped her and tormented her as a child leads her and her friend, who is also a victim of child abuse, on a terrifying journey into a living hell of depravity. And the film explores a very curious question. What happens if somebody is near the brink of death and they're hovering between passing on and in the living world realm, I guess, and they see a glimpse of what the afterlife is like, and they can speak to what they saw. I get the curiosity of that, but there's got to be other ways to get there other than what they did to these poor women in this film. I take no joy in watching a man just brutally just beat up a woman for 30 minutes at the end of the film and then do what he does to her to get her to the last stage. Like, why? I'm glad I saw it. Yeah, I'm one and done. I'm cool with it. I get what they're trying to say. I love the ending. It's a question we can never have an answer to, but just the journey to get there, it's just too brutal for me. And again, I just take no joy in seeing something like that. But this movie stayed in my head, my adult head, for quite some time, because outside of the violence, it hovered in there as far as what did that person see? Why did it end that way? So it did stay in there. But again, it's one of those films, again, I will never enjoy seeing it again. It was great, but I'm good. And before I get to my number one, if you enjoyed this list, I hope you have. I really hope you have. Leave some comments down below, subscribe, like the video, share it. I would appreciate that. I really would. Now for my number one. Number one is the Hills Have Eyes remake that came out, I believe, in 2004, 2005. Now this film, when I say it scarred me, it just really lingered in my head because I have no joy in seeing a family, and I get this is a remake, right? I have no joy in seeing a family, a young daughter, a older daughter who's nursing and has a baby. I never want to see again a family get killed where they all see it happening. I don't want to see the younger daughter be raped. And I don't want to see a mother who's nursing with a newborn be assaulted that way. It's too grotesque and in a sense too real. I get they're crossing the line. I get what they're trying to do with Wes Craven, because he in fact crossed the line back in the 70s with this film. It was really traumatizing, controversial. I get that, but there's some things, in my opinion, the audience viewer doesn't want to see. We get the implied notion of what's going on, but to see it firsthand and to have a gun pointed at a baby, that's too much for me. Now, some could argue the point like, hey, this is art. This is what horror is supposed to do, make you feel uncomfortable. Art isn't safe sometimes, really. I get that, but enough is enough at some point. There's got to be a certain line when it comes to these types of scenes where, like, okay, I think that's a little too much. We shouldn't go that far. And then the film ends. I mean, this poor guy, and again, without spoiling the ending, the film doesn't end happily. And again, you're thinking about the baby, you're thinking about the young kids and what they're going to possibly go through. It's like, oh, okay, that's enough. That's enough for me. And I hope you enjoyed this video. I enjoyed making it because I feel it's giving you a glimpse of me that you haven't seen yet. I know a lot of you are new subscribers to my channel and you're curious on what I like and what I don't like. And I hope this gave you a good idea on who I am. That being said, thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time. Take care.